Shadows of Madison, Ohio. Part 2. I wasn't sure if it was the damp chill from that grate or the adrenaline, but as I backed away, I felt as if someone was watching me. My pulse pounded in my ears as I walked briskly toward the edge of the square. A shadowed figure loomed under the dim street lamp ahead, and for a moment, I thought it was another townsperson out late. But then it stepped back into the darkness, fading into an alleyway just as I tried to make out a face. Something about the shadow's movement unsettled me. It was too smooth, almost as if it floated. I told myself it was just nerves. People talk about Madison as if it's a place of myth and horror, and I wasn't immune to the power of suggestion. Then I heard a faint rustling behind me. I didn't dare look back, instead speeding up, trying to reach the relative safety of the only lit storefront. But my curiosity had other ideas. Against my better judgment, I looked over my shoulder, just in time to see someone or something slip around a corner, something glinting in its hand. Whatever it was didn't move like a person. No sound of footsteps, no shuffle of fabric, just a swaying shadow. 1 second there, the next gone. I found myself back at the diner with Sylvia's words echoing in my mind. As soon as I stepped inside, every head in the room turned. The waitress wasn't there this time, but a grizzled old man with a knowing look took her place, wiping the counter with slow, deliberate movements. "You've seen something, haven't you?" he asked without looking up. For a moment, I considered lying, but his gaze locked onto mine, his eyes dark and expectant. "Maybe," I said cautiously. "What exactly is in those tunnels?" He leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "They started digging them back in the early 1900s, hoping to connect the town to other nearby cities. But they stopped when they found something." I could feel the diner's other patrons listening in, hanging on every word, their faces grim. No one knows exactly what was down there. Only rumors. Those who went too deep. Some of them never came out. Some came out different. He paused, looking past me as if staring at a memory. "It's not just tunnels, you know. Those things, whatever they are, they crawl. They find ways up. Sometimes people go missing, and the town pretends not to notice." The room fell silent, as if everyone was holding their breath. Outside, a thick fog had begun to settle over Madison, swallowing up the streetlights. The old man's eyes flickered toward the windows, his voice tight and low. "It's not the tunnels you should worry about. It's the hospital. They sealed it for a reason." I felt a prickle of fear creep up my spine. "The hospital? You mean the basement rooms?" He nodded. "Back in the 70s, a couple of kids snuck in, poking around. They went missing for days. The cops found them later, wandering the streets in a daze, muttering about rooms that weren't supposed to exist. Secret doors hidden in the walls. Doctors, or at least people dressed like doctors, taking children." His voice shook slightly. "They were doing something in there, taking blood, making things." The fog outside thickened, pushing against the glass. A shadow passed by the window, and every diner patron seemed to hold their breath. The old man leaned closer, his face inches from mine. "You listen to me, kid. You get on the next bus out of here. Madison's cursed. It's like the ground wants revenge, and it takes it, piece by piece, soul by soul." I forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow even to me. "Come on, you don't really believe that, do you?" His eyes turned cold, and for a moment, he looked haunted, as if he'd seen things I couldn't even imagine. "Believe it, son. children in the hospital basement. I know what they saw, and I've seen what happens to those who dig too deep. They lose their minds, or worse. A sudden banging echoed from the back of the diner, cutting through the silence like a gunshot. I jumped, my eyes darting to the kitchen door, where a shadow flickered across the small glass window. "Leave," the man hissed, his voice barely a whisper now. "Get out of here, before it's too late."